During the summer of 2001, I attended an estate sale in Portland, Oregon. The items liquidated at the sale were from the estate of a woman who passed away at age 103. A granddaughter of the woman told me that her grandmother had been born in Poland, where she grew up, married, raised a family, and lived until she was sent to a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. She was the only member of her family who survived the camp. Her parents, brother, a sister, husband, and 2 sons and a daughter were all killed. She survived the camp by escaping with some other prisoners and somehow making her way to Spain, where she lived until the end of World War II. I was told that she acquired the small wine cabinet listed here in Spain, and it was one of the only 3 items that she brought back with her when she immigrated to the United States. The other 2 items were a steamer trunk and a sewing box. I purchased the wine cabinet along with the sewing box and some other furniture at the estate sale. After the sale, I was approached by the woman's granddaughter, who said, "I see you got the Dibbuk Box." She was referring to the wine cabinet. I asked her what a Dibbuk Box was, and she told me that when she was growing up, her grandmother always kept the wine cabinet in her sewing room. It was always shut, and it was a place that was out of reach. The grandmother always called it the Dibbuk Box. When the girl asked her grandmother what was inside, her grandmother spat 3 times through her fingers. Said, "A Dibbuk, a Kesman." The grandmother went on to tell the girl that the wine cabinet was never, ever to be opened. The granddaughter told me that the grandmother had asked that the box be buried with her. However, as such a request was contrary to the rules of the Orthodox Jewish burial, the grandmother's request had not been honored. I asked the granddaughter what Dibbuk and Kelsman were, but she did not know. I asked her if she would like to open it with me. She did not want to open it, as her grandmother had been very apathetic and serious when she instructed her not to do so. And, regardless of the reason, she wanted to honor her grandmother's request. I finally ended up offering to let her keep what seemed to be a sentimental keepsake. At that point, she was very hesitant and said, No, you bought it." I explained to her that I didn't want my money back, and that it would make me feel better to do what I thought was an act of kindness. She then became somewhat upset. Looking back now, the way she became upset was just plain odd. She raised her voice to me and said, "You bought it. You made a deal." When I tried to speak, she yelled, "We don't want it." She began to cry, asked me to leave, and quickly I walked away. I wrote the whole episode off as to the stress and the grief that she must be going through after her grandmother's death. I took my purchase and politely left. At the time, when I bought the cabinet, I owned a small furniture refurbishing business. I took the cabinet to my store and put it in my basement workshop, where I intended to refurnish it and give it as a gift to my mother. I didn't think anything more about it. So, I opened my shop for the day and went to run errands, leaving the young woman who did sales for me in charge. About a half hour later, I got a call on my cell phone. The call was from my salesperson. She was absolutely hysterical and screaming that someone was in the workshop breaking glass and swearing. Furthermore, the intruder had locked the iron security gate and the emergency exit, and she could not get out. As I told her to call the police, my cell phone battery went dead. I hit the speeds of 100 miles an hour, getting back to my shop. When I arrived, I found the gates locked. I went inside and found my employee on the floor in the corner of my office, sobbing hysterically. I ran to the basement and went downstairs. At the bottom of the stairs, I was hit by an overpowering, unmistakable odor of cat urine. There had never been any animals kept or left in my shop, ever. And of course, the lights didn't work. So, as it being my shop, I investigated. I found the reason for the lights not turning on either. The unexplained sound of glass breaking was all the light bulbs in the basement had been broken. Which I found kind of odd, since 9 incandescent bulbs don't broke very often, just by themselves. I did not find the intruder. However, I should also add that there was only one entrance in the basement. It would have been impossible for anyone else to leave without meeting me head-on. I went back up to speak with my salesperson, but she had left. She never returned to work. She still refused to discuss the incident to this day. I never thought of relating the events of that day to anything having to do with that cabinet. But then, things just got worse. I already anticipated the cabinet. I knew I wanted to give it to my mom's birthday gift. It was only in 2 weeks. I decided to get started refinishing it. I was surprised to find the cabinet was a unique little mechanism. When you open one of the doors, the mechanism causes the opposite door and the little drawer below to open at the same time. It was married very well. Inside the cabinet, I found the following items. 1 1928 US wheat penny. 1 1925 US wheat penny. 1 small lock of blonde hair bound with a string. 1 small lock of black-brown hair, also bound with a string. 1 small granite statue engraved and gilded with Hebrew letters. I have been told that the letters spelled out the word Shalom. 1 dried rosebud. 1 golden wine cup. 1 very strange black cast iron candlestick holder with octopus legs. I saved all of the items in the box, intending to return them to the estate. The family has refused the items, so they will be included in the sale of the cabinet. Of course. After opening the cabinet, I decided not to refinish it. I cleaned it, rubbed it with some lemon oil. It was at this time that I noticed that there were strange inscriptions in Hebrew carved into the back of the cabinet. I had no idea what it said, or if it was of any significance. I have included a small picture of the inscription below. On my mother's birthday, October 28th, 2001, my mother called to tell me that she was going out of town with my sister for 3 days, and we would postpone the celebrating of her birthday until she returned on October 31st, 2001. My mother came to the shop where we were going to have lunch, but before we were going to leave, I gave her the wine cabinet. She seemed to like it. While she examined it, I went to make a cell phone call. I had been out of sight for more than 5 minutes when one of my employees came running into the office and saying something was wrong with my mother. I went back into the kitchen to see what the matter was. I found my mom sitting in a chair beside the cabinet. Her face had no expression, but tears were streaming down her cheeks. No matter how I tried to get her to respond, she would not. She could not. It turns out my mother had been suffering a stroke. She was taken to the hospital by ambulance. She ended up suffering partial paralysis. and losing her ability to speak and form words. She has thus regained the ability to speak. She could understand things being said to her, but she would only respond by pointing to letters of the alphabet to spell out words she wanted to say. When I asked her the following day how she was doing, she teared up and spelled the words N-O-G-I-F-T. I assured her that I had given her her gift for her birthday, thinking she did not remember. But she became even more upset and spells the words out. H-A-T-E-G-I-F-T. I laughed and told her not to worry. I told her I was sorry she did not like the cabinet, and that I would get her anything she wanted if she would promise to get well soon. Still, I didn't associate anything that happened with the cabinet itself or anything paranormal. Frankly, I don't think I ever used to use the term paranormal until the last few months. I'll try to make this short now. I gave the cabinet to my sister. She kept it for a week and gave it back. She complained that she couldn't get the doors to stay closed, and that they would keep coming open. There are no springs in the door mechanism, and I've never found that the doors came open. I gave it to my brother and his wife, who kept it for 3 days and gave it back. My brother said it smelled something like jasmine flowers, and his wife insisted that it put an odor of cat urine. I gave it to my girlfriend, who asked me to sell it for her after only 1 day. I sold it the same day to a nice middle-aged couple. 3 days later, when I came to open the shop for the day, I found the cabinet sitting in the front doors with a note that read, "This has been a bad mistake. This has bad darkness." I had no idea what they meant. Anyway, I ended up taking it home. That's when things got even worse. Since the day I brought it home, I began having strange recurring nightmares. Every time I have this horrible dream that comes and goes. Something like this. I find myself walking with a friend. Usually the person I usually hold dearest. I know them well, trust them. At some point in my dream, though, I find myself looking into the eyes of the same person that I'm with. It is then I realize that there is something different. Something evil looking back at me. At that point in my dream, the person that I'm with, they change into what can only be described as the most gruesome, demonic looking hag I've ever seen. This hag proceeds then to beat the living tar out of me. I have awoken numerous times to find bruises and marks left where I've been hit by the old woman during the previous night. Still, I never related the nightmares to the cabinet. Nor do I think that I ever would have. About a month ago, my sister, my brother, and his wife came over to my house and spent the night. The following morning during breakfast, my sister complained that she had horrible nightmares. You said she recalled having a couple of times before, and went on to describe my nightmare exactly to the last detail. My brother and wife froze as I listened. And then they chimed in that they had both had the same exact dream during the night as well. My hair was standing on the back of my neck. It still is. As we talked, it became clear that the common denominator was that each of us had the nightmare during the time the cabinet was in our respective homes. I called my girlfriend and asked if she could recall having any nightmares recently. She described the same nightmare, same hag, everything. When I asked her if she remembered the date when she had the nightmares, she said she couldn't. Then I asked if it happened to be the night before she gave me the cabinet back to sell for her. She said, "Yeah." How do you know that? Now then, since my family discussion, it seems like a hell is breaking loose. For a week afterwards, I started seeing what I could only describe as a shadow, things in my peripheral vision. In fact, numerous visitors of my house have claimed that they have seen these shadow things. I put the cabinet outside storage unit. It was awakened when the smoke alarm in my unit went off in the middle of the night. When I went to see that it was burning, I opened the door. It didn't seem like smoke. However, it did get a hint with the smell of cat urine. When I went back inside, the smell was there in my house. I do not own a cat, I never have. I went back outside and grabbed the cabinet. I brought it back inside and tried to do research on the internet. While I was surfing the net, I fell asleep once again. I had the same frickin' nightmare. I woke up around 4:30 a.m. when it felt like someone was breathing on my neck. I found my house now smelled like jasmine flowers, and just in time to see a huge shadow thing go looping around down the hallway from me. I would destroy this thing in a second, except for I really don't have any understanding of what I may or may not be dealing with. I'm afraid, and I do mean afraid, that if I destroy the cabinet, however, it seems like that thing would just stay here with me. I've been told that there are people who shop on eBay that understand these kind of things, and specifically look for these kind of items. If you're one of these people, please buy this cabinet and do whatever you want with this thing. Help me. Oh God, please help me. You can see that I have no reserve price or minimum bid. If I can make things any easier, let me know, and I will do everything within my ability. One more note. On the same day my mom had her stroke, the lease in my store was suddenly terminated without cause. All the items that I originally owned found inside the cabinet are included in the sale and will be delivered with the cabinet. There is no way that I could respond to all the emails I've received since I put this thing online. I'll try now to update and answer the most common questions I've been receiving. Number 1, no, I am not religious. Number 2, no, I do not wish to have or participate in any sort of exorcism or case study or photo sessions at my home. Number 3, I will not sell any individual pieces that were originally found separate with any pieces of the cabinet. Number 4, no, I do not speak Hebrew, nor do I know what the word Kislelim means. I don't know that the word is even a Hebrew word. At the end of the auction, I decided to take an opportunity to speak with the winning bidder for 2 reasons. A, to make sure the winning bidder was a serious adult who has employed some valid reasoning skills in making the decision to accept whatever this is. I will not be judgmental. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want after the sale with this thing. B. To offer full details of the events that have been transpired. After I've carried out those responsibilities, and upon payment, I'll have the cabinet and its contents delivered by U.S. mail, FedEx, or UPS to the winning bidder. At that point, I will have no further involvement with this piece in any way, shape, or form, period. Also, to those who offer to pray for me, I'm letting you know I am not religious. I never really had a use for God. But now, after what I've seen, I'm open to anything that may help me be free from this thing. Into the winning outbidder. Just remember, when you wake up with the same nightmares I had, don't ever fall back to sleep.